Hello everyone and welcome to another video on the Toliss Airbus A321, and today we're going to look at some of the features of the MCDU or the FMGC, just to have a look at some things you may not have seen in it before. As always, I am a real-world Airbus pilot, and I hope this can bring some extra context to your home simulation, but it's not for any real-world use and it doesn't represent any actual airline procedures. I'm just showing you some of the things we can do, and we'll also see some of the things that the Toliss doesn't quite have simulated just yet. So let's get started. So here we are on departure from Edinburgh Echo Golf Papa Hotel, flying south to Gatwick. That's our flight that we're expecting to do. And let's have a look at what we could do if we wanted to return to Edinburgh. Let's say there's some reason we want to go back. Maybe it's a technical thing, or a passenger is ill or something like that. Perhaps the company wants us to go back, or there's a problem in London. All of these things could happen. So how would we do that in our MCDU? Well, there's a couple of ways of doing it. First of all, of course, we have our secondary flight plan. And if I bring up this page, as long as you have it set to any of these nav modes, you'll see the secondary in a white line appear on there. So first of all, I'm going to copy the active, because that way it'll just become what I'm doing now, which was direct to Mavics with air traffic control. Okay, now in the flight plan, I can simply choose to return. So let's say I wanted to go from, let's go from Luciv back to Edinburgh. So I scrolled to Luciv, and now I can select next to Luciv, and then new destination, Echo Golf Papa Hotel. I can go in there, and there we have Luciv, and now you can see after that point Edinburgh. It's important you select next to the point you want to return from. For example, if it was after a hold and you accidentally selected the first point before the hold, you'd lose that hold, that sort of thing. And now I can just select my approach, ILS24, and we'll go for an in-pip arrival, bring us in from the south via Tala, and insert, and now we can see that in our ND, and that's our secondary setup. You don't have to do it doesn't do temporary flight plans in the same way in the secondary, so often you make changes, it doesn't need confirmation. Great. And now I could activate that. So I would normally pull the aircraft into heading, activate the secondary, and then I'd see where it's going to take me before I then went into nav mode to actually fly it. The magic as well is because I've already entered some performance into the primary, that's copied over into the secondary already, so you've got to recheck it, but there you go. Another way is, without even using the secondary flight plan, if I just look at the primary, I can do exactly the same thing. I can go from Luciv, new destination, Echo Golf Papa Hotel. Again, important that I select the right waypoint to start off with, and insert, and now I have Edinburgh, and I'll do the same thing. So in many ways, I personally find using the primary is easier. The secondary is more for if you're backing up a plan, getting it ready, but you don't want to actually use it yet. You're not sure if you're going to need it. But as you can see here, it's quite simple to do it in the primary and then insert. And there we go. So that's one thing we can do. We can also start making waypoints. So if I want to actually draw a line, you see that I've got this discontinuity. So it goes from Luciv and then around. So let's get rid of in-pip and in-rev, and Esto and Tartan. Now this isn't realistic, this is just something that you can do with the MCDU. Let's say I wanted to draw a line in between these two. Well, I could just clear the discontinuity, but there is a way to enter a waypoint. So if I look at Luciv, I can actually do a place bearing distance. Let me bring Luciv to the top of the flight plan, there you go. So if I wanted to put the waypoint to the east by 10 miles, I can do that. I simply go, I need to do it before I get there, type in my place, Luciv, then the bearing 090, and then the distance 10 miles. And now I'll put that in just below Luciv, and it writes it in there. I would expect it to say PBD or something like that, but there we go. And it draws that point in, insert. And now I've got that point there, and then I could clear the discontinuity and take us to Tala. That's not a very used thing, I would say, because we don't tend to make our own waypoints to navigate by. The reason is we don't know what's safe there, we don't know where the terrain is, it's not an approved airway. You're far more likely to get radar vectors or a directed to Tala, something like that. But it is there now, and you can see. So that is something you can do in the MCDU. So what else would I consider if we were returning? Well, let's have a look at, and this has been requested, the direct to page. So sorry, the fixed info page. So I've already shown you in previous videos the direct to drawing radial in, which we use to sequence the flight plan and draw it out to center line. So I'll provide a link to my radar vectoring video, which covers how to use that to sequence the flight plan, and we'll see a bit of it here today. But there's some other things we would consider. first of all, if I'm approaching Edinburgh, I need to look at the terrain, and this is something that we would do for any approach, and I'm going to do the ILS for runway 24, which is NDB ILS runway 24. So I have this MSA chart up here based on the Echo Delta November locator. So if I go flight plan, select one left next to elusive, and then fixed info, then I type in what I'm basing it from, Echo Delta November. It's going to be this NDB 341, and I can see that on the chart. 341 is also 33 miles away because these ones are 3,600 and 8,000 miles away. There have been real life incidents where people have got this wrong and it's been very dangerous. So make sure you choose the right one. There we go. We're going to use the 341 NDB. And now I can see that if I put in a 270 line, and I can do that by typing in the radial 270, that actually draws out the opposite way. So that's effectively the 090 line. And I need one on the other side. So if I type in 090, now if we zoom out, we can see that that line has been drawn based on the Echo Delta November because I've highlighted it in the MCDU. And let's zoom in to show you that. And there it is. So we know above that line, the MSA is 34 and 3000. And below that line, it's 3,900. Now, these are also based on different distances from that locator. So I'm talking as we get closer in. Some charts, it's 25 nautical miles. It depends. You need to check that yourself. It does vary a little bit depending on the chart and so on. So I know that as I'm coming in below this line, I need to be at 3,900. Once I'm through the line, I could descend to 3,000, and that would be safe. So what else can I do? Well, I need that 180 really as well because it's 3,400 to that side, so it'd be useful to be able to see that. And it's possible. If we go back to fixed info, you can see 1 out of 4. So if you now scroll with either of these arrows, I always get it wrong the first time I try to get to the next one. It doesn't really matter which one you type it into, but if you press that bottom arrow there to the right, you get 2 out of 4, and now we're on the next page. And I can do the same again. Echo Delta November. Select the correct one, 341, and now radial, but it's the 180, so I need to put in 360 to make it go north. And there we go. And now I can see that light. So I know in this area, 3,000 is the MSA, and this area, 3,400. So there's some other parts that are useful for that, especially for MSAs. Next, and I might consider doing a visual approach. And there's another useful feature to this page that I will show you shortly. So obviously in a diversion case, there would be lots of other things to consider. So we're just going through some simple MCDU features here. If we look in the arrival chart for Edinburgh runway 24 visual approaches, and it says that if we're going to arrive from the south and we're over 5.7 tons, which we are, then we must be not less than 7 nautical miles on the extended centre line. So that means we can't start cutting really tight finals in here at sort of 4 miles. They want us to go out to 7 miles and in. So that's fine. So how can we judge that if we're going to fly a visual approach? Well, we go back to our fixed info page. So one left, fixed info. I've already used up the first 2, so I'll go to number 3, and then I'll put in Echo Golf Papa Hotel and the threshold I'm landing on, 24. And then I'm just going to put a radius of 7 in. And there you go. Now that's drawn a ring that's 7 miles, and I can simply fly to this point and be on final by that point. Now, I wouldn't necessarily do that exactly to that. If there was this restriction, I'd probably go slightly wider, and so that I can turn in an intercept at that point, just to keep it nice and certain that we'll be not getting too tight in. But that radial there, sorry, that radius gives us a good idea of where that is. And it can also be useful, as I was saying with the MSAs, if you wanted to have a distance around this. Let's say it was a 25-mile ring. I could type in EDN, and then make that radius from 7, change it to 25. And if we zoom out, there we go, we can see. So we know the MSAs in these sectors and so on, depending on your chart, like I said. So that's a feature that's often used for. There's some other good features that sadly aren't simulated at the moment. In the MCDU, you should be able to go in the data page. So select the FMGC data page, and there'll be a closest airports option here, which isn't simulated at the moment. And that is really useful. It will give you a distance, bearing, and time of arrival at different airports nearby. So it's a really handy one. Something to note with this setup is that this won't sequence the flight plan by using the fixed info page. So although I've drawn these, if I was to draw a centerline out, which I could do, so the inbound course for the ILS is, I believe it's 241. So if I was to do, I could go to my next page. If I go to page 4, Echo Golf Papa Hotel 24, I put in a radial out of 061, we get that center line. But that won't sequence the flight plan, which I talk about in my radar vectors video. So now, if I was to not fly through these waypoints, the flight plan would not be sequenced for me. So although I have that nice blue line, it's not actually providing the FMGC with any useful information. So it's still possible that I could miss out. Whereas if I do my center line, which I will do now from, well, let's put in FI24, because I'm sure I'm going to fly over that even doing my visual, and 061. And then I can see I've got the actual center line. FI24 becomes the expected waypoint. I need to pull heading again, and that's a lot better. So I wouldn't use the fixed info page for drawing center lines. It's just not really useful for that. That's it for today. I hope it's been useful, something slightly different. Maybe you already knew a few of those. So if there's more you'd like to ask or find out about it, do let me know, and we'll hopefully get you that content that you're looking for. Thanks as always for watching, and see you again in another video soon.